We're broadcasting live for those that are joining us virtually from our sheep camp studio here at the Reno Sparks Convention Center. This is day 5 of our virtual sheep week and day 2 of our in-person sheep show. Today or this morning's presentation is titled "The Mountains Are Getting Steeper." And I know for me personally, that's true. For those of you that may not be true, just wait a little while. Father Time is undefeated, as we know. Let's face it, as hunters, we're gear junkies. Bows, arrows, sights, ballistics, our clothing, our footwear, all of that stuff. But there is another piece of gear that's vitally more important than all of that, and that's ourselves. Our physical fitness as well as our mental fitness is gear. It is a tool. So with that in mind, we reached out to our friends at Mountain Fitness Labs out of Bozeman, Montana, to put on this presentation for you. There was an interesting thing that I read in Dustin's description. It said they specialize in teaching their clients how to be comfortable being uncomfortable, which I thought was really interesting. As most of you know, a lot of the gear that I just mentioned that we utilize today and historically over time has been adapted from the military. And this presentation and what these gentlemen are going to share with you today is no different. In this case, our Navy SEALs and our Army Rangers. So without further ado, Justin and Jimmy, take it away.
Thanks, Keith. Morning. We're super excited to be here. I'm Dustin. I'm the founder of Mountain Tough. This is Jimmy. Jimmy is our head trainer. And this is our 3rd time being able to do the fitness seminar at the Wild Sheep Foundation show. And we're just super humbled and grateful. We were able to take this seminar over from a legend in 2018, and he retired from the seminar, and so we've had it for 2018, 19, and then this year. And it's been a blast. We've had a lot of fun doing these seminars, and we wanted to do something slightly different this year. The one thing we wanted to do is a larger Q&A at the end. And every time we've done this seminar, we've gone into the science of human performance, how to train, what to eat. And we wanted to take it a little different direction this year because when Keith reached out, he wanted to talk about training as you get older and what that takes and what needs to happen for that to be effective. And we were really excited about that opportunity. I will turn 40 this summer. Jimmy recently turned 50 a few months ago. And then in our Bozeman lab, we have athletes of all different ages, from 30 to 60. And so we see a lot of what it takes to train for the mountains and be kind of an optimal mountain athlete as you get older. And so the biggest factor we've seen to keep people successful as they're training is not so much the science, and that's what we've talked about in our last 2 seminars, and we won't talk about that today in our presentation, but we will save the science questions for the end in the Q&A. And so Jimmy and I will be here for that. We can come down on the floor and pass around the microphone and get your exercise-specific questions answered. But what I wanted to talk about today is more the identity and the why that keeps you training year after year after year after year. I'll start with the Mountain Tough story. So Mountain Tough was founded in 2016, and it started from my background as a Montana kid. So I grew up bow hunting the West with my dad, and we traveled all across the West, archery, hunting elk. And then when I got married, my wife is very into marathon running and ultra running. And so I started running with her, and I thought that that was the perfect solution for the mountain athlete, because you're running marathons and 50Ks in a lot of the same mountains that you're going to be elk hunting in later that year. And so at first I thought it was the ideal situation to be a better hunter was to run in those mountains. And then I realized that too much running was actually making me a worse mountain tactical athlete. And a lot of that came down to too much cardio, makes you too lean and not enough strength to handle the heavy packs that a hunter needs. And that was kind of the founding idea of Mountain Tough. It was, what if we trained a hunter for this exact mission rather than winging it? And the exact mission is high elevation, rugged terrain, multiple days, heavy packs. And so that makes a very unique athlete, because only the military has athletes that are running a similar operation to that, where they're going in light, coming out heavy, dealing with the elements for 5 to 7 days. And so Mountain Tough started on that idea, what if we trained a hunter exactly like the NFL would train an NFL athlete? And so an NFL strength coach is going to train an offensive lineman for that specific job, but they're going to train a wide receiver for a very different job. And so we started breaking down the science of what it was going to take to do that for the hunter, and that's what we've been doing since 2016. It's been a really awesome journey. It's been a lot of fun. We have a lab in Bozeman where we're testing this stuff every single day, and now we have 10,000 athletes that are training with us online through the app. So we break down the science in Bozeman, put it into a program that folks can follow every day from their phone, and then the athletes are doing it at home or in their gym in their town. And it's been interesting because what we've seen recently is this desire to train at home and just to do whatever it takes to continue training, whether your gym's closed or open. And that makes us really proud of just the Mountain Tough community. Like, no matter what happens, they're not going to stop. So they're going to train with their pack, they're going to train with their kettlebell, whether the gym is open or not. But what I wanted to talk about today is what has kept Jimmy training as he has gotten older, what's kept me training as I've gotten older. And the interesting thing is, it's not about hunting for me anymore, where it used to be the major motivating factor is, I'm going to get in really, really good shape for this hunt. And that's great fuel. It's really good fuel, but it's not enough. It's not enough for 10, 20, 30 years of training. So that's what we wanted to talk about today. I wanted to start with this letter that sums up kind of what I mean. So we got this 2 days ago as we were driving down to Sheep Show. Hey Mountain Tough, I am a doctor and avid hunter from Alabama. I've been using your program for the past 2 years. Last week I was at the hospital seeing a patient prior to surgery when I became acutely short of breath. As my body felt starved for oxygen, I managed to get myself over to the ER where I worked. Shortly thereafter, it was discovered I had a large pulmonary embolism that nearly completely occluded my pulmonary arteries, leading me to heart failure. I was then rushed to the cath lab under the care of an interventional cardiologist. It was then that the blood clots were manually removed from my lungs. Shortly after the procedure, I was told that the severity of what had happened, I was told that if I was not in the shape that I was in through dieting and exercise that your program provided me, then I would no longer be here to share this story. I believe the Lord spared my life, but I also wanted to thank you for the dedication to developing a program that maximized my health at the time when I needed it most. I'm back home with my lovely wife and 3 kids, and have started back at work just 1 week after this life-threatening event. I'll continue to recommend your program and wanted to thank you all for your hard work and dedication. So I love this letter, and I think it came at the perfect time. Not so much that the guy was doing our program, because I think he could have been doing a variety of different programs and still had the same letter, which is really cool. Because I think the results of the letter are because he was working out frequently, he's not dead now. And I think that my favorite part is because he is still alive, at the end of the letter, the most important thing is getting back to his wife and kids. So I think this ability to train for 10 to 20 years, it's going to take a lot more fuel than hunting, even though hunting might get you off the couch. And I think this letter sums that up really well. So I wanted to break that down a little bit for you guys. So Mountain Tough has studied the topic of backcountry mental and physical performance, perhaps at an unprecedented level. So we are just so fortunate and blessed to be based in Bozeman, Montana, and we have some of the best hunters in the world, the best military athletes in the world, skiers, mountaineers, etc., just hanging out in our gym every day. And the online community being 10,000 athletes, some of these programs have 3,500 hours worth of testing behind them, where we can see what's working on the mountain and then tweak it for the next year, make it better and better and better. So for the last couple of years, we've really been focused on what actually makes someone a top performer, what makes someone the best in the world. And part of our last two seminars, we know for sure that that's mental toughness. If we can make an athlete mentally tough, we know they can accomplish almost any goal that they're going after in their life, whether that's hunting or non-hunting related. A mental tough person is going to accomplish their goal. And so in short-term success, the most important factor you can have is grit, it's mental focus, it's determination. And so that would be something like running a marathon or running up a mountain to get the shot. We know someone that has a ton of grit and a ton of mental toughness is going to make that happen. But when we looked across the board at our older athletes, it's way deeper than mental toughness and grit. Like if I walk into the gym and I see an athlete that's in there 5 days a week and they're 50 years old, it's a lot more than mental toughness keeping that person going, but mental toughness got them in the door. So we kind of broke down what's going on here, and these athletes have a much different skill set. So the athletes that are training for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, they have maintained high performance over the long haul, high performance that they're proud of. And so it is a different factor than mental toughness, which we used to talk about a lot, which is still very important, but it's different than being a high performer as you get older. So what we ended up calling this high performance mentality over the long time, we phrased it last year as the stay dangerous mentality. So the stay dangerous mentality came from a good friend of ours, and the stay dangerous mentality is from a military operator that we work with, and he was signing all his emails stay dangerous. And so one day I asked him what that was about for him, and for him it's not about necessarily being a dangerous human being, which he is, but it's much different than that. For him, he wants to be at an elite level his entire career, through his 30s, through his 40s, into his 50s, being able to operate at that high level regardless of the circumstances. And he does. We talk to him all the time, and he's able to work out whether he has gear. He's able to work out whether he doesn't have gear. He just does what it takes regardless of the circumstances. And it's a pretty good testimony. Last year or 2 years ago in 2020, when COVID rocked the U.S., that unit was quarantined in 10 by 10 rooms. So 10 by 10 rooms so that COVID didn't spread through these units quickly. And there was someone who would knock on the door. They would have to count to 30, open the door, get their food, and remain in their room. They were in those 10 by 10 rooms for 6 weeks with nothing to work out with other than their rucksack. And so they had their rucksack in a 10 by 10 room, but individuals like that are still going to work out every day regardless. And so that's where we created our 4570 heavy pack training program, was so that those guys could just keep grinding with what they had. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about this stay dangerous mentality. It's high achievement with balance. It's also about being a better father, mother, boss, friend. It's more than mental toughness, and a big part of it is being a better part of your community and passing down what you learn to the next generation. Jimmy and I were talking about this week. This example sums it up pretty well for me. So I called it here, my dad versus his dad example. And so this is a big motivating factor for me now as I look at the stay dangerous mentality. My dad is 63. He was in Bozeman yesterday taking my 2 daughters skiing at Bridger Bowl. He drove 2 hours to arrive in Bozeman to take my 7 and 9-year-old skiing all day, and then drove 2 hours home. He windsurfs and wind skis 3 days a week. He makes it to boot camp at his YMCA 5 days a week. And for me, that's just super cool, because when I was a kid, my grandpa didn't do anything like that. So I remember going to my grandpa's house, and he would just yell at us for not taking our shoes off in the house, and most of the time would just be sitting there watching the stock market on the TV. And he was about that same age. He was 63, 65. And so this is a really important thing for me. I think it's really cool that someone could be performing at that level into their 60s. And Jimmy, he has a very similar story. He remembers, seeing his grandpa, who was 55 or 60, when they would go to visit him when Jimmy was a kid. And it's that real slow, can barely get out of the chair, stand up, straighten out. And I really believe that it doesn't have to be that way, and it doesn't have to be that complicated. I think there are injuries, of course, but I think there are ways to continue to be very active into your 60s. So what we talked about with our friend who helped us with the stay dangerous mentality is a way to wrap our heads around this some more. And one thing he told us to do was the tombstone test. So the tombstone test is, what do you actually want it to say on your tombstone when you die? And based on writing your obituary now, how can you change what you're doing today so that it reads well? So a good example of this was something that we heard in our gym as we were going through this experience. So someone used these words: in loving memory of, this man was a collegiate All-American wrestler in 2003 and a loving husband. You will forever be in our heart. So this one is interesting because this relates to, at one point in time, this gentleman had extreme physical fitness and mental toughness and was an All-American wrestler in 2003. But it doesn't say anything about what he did with the later years of his life, and if he was even still in any sort of physical condition. So a better example would be this, or would you want it to say, This man was a warrior. He trained many other warriors using everything he had learned. He treated every person he met with respect. He raised his children to be strong with utmost moral and ethical character. He was revered by his competitors and was always kind, giving, and trustworthy. Even in his last days, he served his community. So this is what we were working on with the Stay Dangerous mentality, is how do you want your tombstone to read? Do you want it to read like this, or do you want to talk about something you did in 2003? And what are you going to do today and tomorrow to ensure that happens? So it was a really cool process between the difference of short-term performance and long-term performance. And the key to really being successful at this is identity. So if you can tie your goals into who you want to become instead of what you want to do, you're going to have high performance over the long term. So a goal on what I want to do would be like, I want to hunt Dall sheep in Alaska, so I'm going to get in shape. But a goal on who I want to become would be, I want to train so that I can take my daughters on a Dall sheep hunt 10 years from now, is a more of a who goal than a what. And so those are the ones we see working in our lab that are making an impact for generations. So I'll shift gears here. I think the good news, in my opinion, is that everyone sitting in this room is a highly motivated person. And you're in this room because you want to improve and grow, probably in 2022. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in this room and you wouldn't be in this seminar. And you most likely have big goals, New Year's resolution type goals for 2022. You want to get healthier, you want to get stronger. I think the bad news is, based on what we see, 92% of the goals set in this room won't last unless you can make that switch from what to who. So why is that? I think the reason number one that we've been talking about is we focus on the what but don't understand the how. And we see that a lot in our gym. And I think this one is pretty exciting for me, just because the how is pretty simple, especially if we're talking about fitness. I think we don't need to make the how very complicated. I think a lot of people get hung up before they start training because they're really, really nervous about the how. How many sets should I be doing? How many reps should I be doing? How many days a week? How many days a week should I be resting? What actual weight should I be using? What cardio machine should I be using? But based on what we're seeing, I think just doing something every day is probably the most critical component, and then you can specialize it from there. So we don't need to get too caught up on the how. We will break down the exercise science today during the Q&A, and we certainly have some pointers on that, and we can walk you through how we train all our athletes for Western mountain hunting. But I think we see too many folks get hung up on that before they just start moving, and starting to move is the most important thing. So this is part of our, I'll click over to here, find it here. I'm going to go to this chart on fitness. There we go. So this was in 2017, 2018, this was our sheep show seminar. There was a lot of slides like this. So what is fitness? What do I need to be doing for muscular strength? What do I need to be doing for endurance? What should I be eating? How do I become more mentally tough? What if I have an injury? How do I get more cardio training? And we can certainly help you with all of that, and we certainly believe that these are the most important 6 dimensions of fitness, and you need all of these to be a true mountain athlete. But I think if you're not currently training, you're not currently working out, the important thing is to set an identity goal rather than getting bogged down by this information. The second big reason that we see people stop training as they age, and we see this in the gym all the time, is reason number 2, we don't see progress fast enough. So someone in their 40s hasn't worked out since their 20s, they come into the gym really motivated for one reason or another, they're ready to start working out, and they do, and they quit because they don't see progress fast enough. And I think very rarely do people see immediate results when starting a good or a bad habit. As a result, they wrongly conclude 2 things. These small, wise decisions I'm making don't matter that much, or the small, unwise decisions don't matter that much. So if we're working out, for example, I've been to the gym 3 times, I'm just sore, I don't feel like I'm in any better shape than I was 3 days ago, so I'm gonna quit. Or I have, for the unwise, I'm having a cheeseburger every single night from McDonald's. I don't seem like I'm gaining any weight, so that must not really matter that much. But if you look at athletes and high performers across the board, it is all about the small daily decisions. So results are going to take time, but concluding that small wise or small unwise decisions don't matter is dangerously wrong. Our entire life is the sum total of small decisions we make. And that's what I see with why, like, my dad is still windsurfing 3 days a week at 63 versus Jimmy's example of seeing a 55-year-old grandfather not be able to get out of a chair is related to small daily decisions. So that's what really matters when we're talking about this 20, 30, 40, 50-year training philosophy. And then this is the big one, reason 3, and it's our negative self-perception sabotages our success, identity. So this is where we see most people failing, especially over 30 and 40 years old, that are trying to get back after it. So we all have insecurities, and those insecurities can create a dangerous cycle. We see this all the time. A good example of this, we all have insecurities, and those insecurities can create a dangerous cycle, is someone will walk in to the gym and they'll say they're out of shape. And so they already created an identity for themselves as an out of shape person. So they already are fighting a big uphill battle, because the first thing they do is tell you that they're an out of shape person, and so now they've already stamped that label of identity on them. So you have to be really careful with this self-sabotage cycle. The other thing that it does, it creates unwise habits. So if someone is already identifying themselves as out of shape, then they won't eat as healthy, because they already identify themselves as an out of shape person, so they're okay making unhealthy nutrition choices, and it's because they've already kind of created this insecurity. So identity shapes actions. So instead of setting goals that focus on what you want to do this year is focus on who you want to become rather than what you want to do. So examples would be, instead of I want to get in shape for a sheep hunt, it would be turn that into an identity goal rather than a mission goal. So an example could be, I want to be a grandfather that can inspire grandkids on the mountain. So someone will stick to that goal instead of sticking to a mission-specific goal. Or I want to be a disciplined leader that is respected and admired. I want to be a mother that can leave a legacy of adventure in her family. So when I look at the Bozeman Lab and I think about these 50 and 60 and 70-year-old males and females that are just crushing it still, this is usually the way they talk. They talk out of identity. They do a lot of really, really cool missions, but you don't hear them talking about training for the mission. They're training for these bigger picture identity goals. So identity-based goals work from certainly what I've seen over the last couple years, and event-based goals can work very, very well, but only for the short term, not the long term. The best example of this is it's a psychology experiment. They found it to be about 200% more effective going with the identity route versus a goal route. And it's related to quitting smoking, quitting drinking, quitting gambling. So someone trying to quit smoking will be out at night and they haven't smoked in a couple days, and someone will offer them a cigarette. And that person who's going off a mission goal would say, I'm trying to quit. And then someone who was in that same experience as a identity-based person would say, I'm not a smoker. And the person who would go, I'm not a smoker, was about 200% more effective in quitting than someone who said, I'm trying to quit. So this identity stuff is really important. It works the same in alcohol. Dependency is the same with tobacco and gambling. It all connects back to that person's identity. So your habits matter much more than you could ever imagine. And your athlete potential as you age is a direct reflection of the quality of your habits. There's a famous John Maxwell quote, I can predict the long-term outcome of your success if you show me your daily habits. And that's really what I see in Bozeman. It's really what I see in the lab, is these 50-year-olds and 60-year-olds that are coming in. It's just part of their lifestyle. They're just going to be there every day. And they're going to be there every day whether like their knee hurts a little bit or their hip hurts a little bit. They're just going to work through it because it's just part of their daily process. They're not going through these roller coaster swings of working out for 3 months, taking 3 months off, working out for 3 months. It's just a daily thing. So I'll close with a couple. I just wanted to add this one in here because it says don't chase super habits. I put that in here because we see this all the time of someone's always just looking for the magic pill. And especially in fitness, that's a big thing that happens all the time, is no one actually wants to do the work. They just want the quick fix. So they want the perfect program or the perfect diet that is going to instantly get them to lose 30 pounds. But none of these super habits work, in my opinion. There's good programming and there's bad programming, and there's a lot of good ones out there. But these super habits are not what you should be focused on. It's these daily, long-term habits that connect to your identity. So this is what I've been working on for this year as I went through the Stay Dangerous mentality exercise with our friend. So I want to be a father worthy of my daughters. I never want to be the guy who used to lift. I put that one in there because in the gym all the time, someone always comes in and tells us how they lifted 10 years ago, and I don't want to ever be that guy. I want to be hunting the backcountry and traveling into my 70s, and I train to know what I'm capable of. So this has been a really fun process for me. I'm training harder now this year than I ever have. And it's interesting to me that that's happening because I used to train for marathons. I used to train for hunting season. I used to train for trips. And so going through this process and switching it into identity, I'm training harder than I ever have and more consistently is pretty cool. So I'll close with this one, and then we'd really like to do a Q&A with you guys. Jimmy can come down with the microphone, and we can really get into the science questions if you have them. But this is the last slide. Hunting is an event, not the end game, because your life is more than a hunt. So this is actually from our first sheep show seminar in 1718, and we do believe in training to hunt. Of course, we're a train to hunt brand, but we think it takes a lot more fuel than that to train for 10 or 20 years. And so we encourage you guys to look for identity goals this year, not what goals, and we're happy to open it up to a Q&A. Jimmy, you might need to take the mic down.
Yeah. Anybody have any questions? Hi, my name's Dave Kestner. I'm from Alaska, and I'm pleasantly surprised and really enjoyed your conversation, your dissertation. I'm one of those guys. I'm 62. I was a collegiate athlete. I played hockey. I was a Marine for 25 years. Triathlons, marathons, you name it. Mountain hunter for going on well over 20 years. High altitude mountain climber. I've summited some of the highest peaks in the world. And I used to think there was an off season, and there's not. There is no off season. And I didn't realize this until your generation killed me in the mountains. And I was like, when I was running marathons, I hit a wall at 22 miles. I trained hard, I carbo loaded, I had that off season, I really got going, and I hit a wall at 22 miles. I'm on a mountain one day, and I'm watching it. That's going to take me 20 days to climb with 140 pounds of gear. And I watch a kid blow by me and do it in 14 hours. Your generation. And I'm like, how the hell does he do that? He's got 2 arms, 2 legs, And oh, by the way, I started reading some more. I'm going, these kids are running 100 miles. They're doing stuff in the mountains that I couldn't do on the flats in Washington, D.C. in the Marine Corps Marathon. And what it turned out to be, when you look at what these guys do, it's a lifestyle. And he hit on it a lot just in his little dissertation there. There is no off season. And I firmly believe this: words have meaning. Commitment. I've committed to 3 things in my life: my marriage, the Marine Corps, and my lifestyle of working out. Discipline is how I do that. And I think it's very important every time you go to the gym, you have a discipline in what you're going to do that day. In the science part of it, by doing it and making it a lifestyle, these kids, his generation, discovered a transformation of energy. In that, his generation was using fat to burn energy. I was using sugar and carbohydrates. That fat molecule burns 3 times hotter. He can go 3 times farther. And when I understood how to do that, I'm 62, and I'm still climbing, going 3 times farther, just because I'm burning fat. And what allows me to do that is that lifestyle commitment. Like he talked about his father, going. My great-great-grandfather wasn't obese, but he sure as hell didn't train for marathons either. He worked in the back 40. He walked, he shoveled, it was a constant lifestyle, and he wasn't obese because he was burning fat for energy. His generation, what these guys have been doing, and I've been watching them do it over the last number of years, and you can see it in his presentation, they're talking about lifestyle and not, hey, I'm going hunting this fall. There is no off season. And it wasn't my generation or my father's generation, my great-grandfather's generation understood it, and these guys brought it into. These guys are running 100 miles. And when I was in my prime, I hit a wall at 22.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's so true. I think we realized that in year one of Mountain Tough. We came out with our first program we ever took online was preseason prep. So it was all 4 months of training to get someone ready for the mountain. But postseason training was so obvious for us because we don't come home from a hunt and stop training, that we released the postseason strength program. But you are right, it was a little shock, especially to the Western hunting world, because the Western hunting world, it's getting better, but then it was this mentality, which was very, very common, was I am going to train for a hunt in the summer, I'm going to go on the hunt, and then I'm going to sit on the couch all winter, and I'm going to go through that cycle again and again and again. But it was very counterintuitive to us, because we were like, you just train all year, and then it's just a constant improvement, and everything's just building off of everything else.
So a little bit to that fact. I'm 63. What I've noticed is, more than anything, even though I continue to do this stuff daily, the results are not quite coming in. To Keith's point, doing the same thing, the mountain is still getting a lot tougher to get up and down. So do you have any comments or guidance as to help us that are older to try and continue to not just maintain, but to excel?
Jimmy can talk a lot about that. I'll repeat the question real quick. So the question is, still training hard at 63, still hunting hard at 63, but the results are difficult to get, and the mountain does feel steeper. Jimmy has some awesome stuff on this one.
Yeah, so what I've done with a lot of myself and a lot of my clients is we've really focused on making the workout a real quality, good workout as far as mobility and range of motion and intensity. So, maybe back 10 years ago on a certain workout that Dustin and I would do, maybe I would be holding on to, 100-pound dumbbells and doing lunges. As I've gotten older, I've noticed I can't, hold that kind of weight anymore. So I'll lighten the load and just take the volume even higher and higher and higher. So as I've aged, I've looked for more volume and quality of the movements and range of motion than wrapping my head around how much weight I can do. And that really has helped us a lot. Back in the day, just using lunges as an example, if we would do 3 sets of 10 on lunges, we felt that was a good day. But nowadays, we're consistently hitting over 200 lunges in one workout. But I'll just lighten the load. And I've seen that help us up in the mountains tremendous amount, because we're building that volume, and getting your body adapted to those stresses under a long term. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Instead of an hour workout, we'll work out for 90 minutes for 2 hours with lighter weight. And you're still breaking that tissue down. You're still getting stronger. And we've seen that help out a lot. Instead of 40 reps with hundreds, try 200 reps with 50s. Just an example there. So, yeah, higher durations and mobility has been key. We've been working on the last 2 years on, especially knee mobility a lot, and keeping our knees flexible. If your knees get tight, you start, doing your movements in the wrong pattern, and your body starts picking the path of least resistance, then you create bad habits. So lighten things up, make sure you're mobile, do your stretches every day, and that'll help out a ton. And just increase your volume. Yeah.
Hey, thanks to you both for the words of wisdom. It's been said that you can't outwork a bad diet. And just wanted to know, I know you've put some great stuff on your website in terms of the mountain diet. Can you just talk a little bit high level on principles? I know a lot of us look at meals and drinks as a social thing rather than a nutritional thing. And this being together is a classic example of that as we gather around these banquets and that kind of thing. So just a few comments, if you don't mind, on that part of the fitness piece.
You bet. I can start and then I can hand it off to Jimmy. We are huge believers, of course, that food is fuel. And it is funny because you did bust us yesterday eating that cheeseburger in the booth. But we didn't, it was either the taco in the bag or the cheeseburger. We went the cheeseburger, which was embarrassing. But I eat for performance, so I eat so I can work out really hard. And so I eat an incredible amount of calories right now. What we do know is, from at least if I look at the Bozeman lab, it's super unique for each person, and it becomes very, very, very more important as you age. So like me watching Jimmy over the last 2 years has been fascinating, because he used to eat the same thing I was eating and now he doesn't, and he's made some major tweaks just because things have changed as he approached 50. So maybe you can share a little bit about that, Jimmy.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting because I used to be able to eat whatever I wanted to eat and just thin as a rail. Then all of a sudden I noticed, oh wow, I'm a little heavier and a little heavier and a little heavier, and I'm still exercising extremely hard. But the older I've gotten, I've really had to reduce the amount of calories I'm eating and really clean up the diet, So the last 2 years, I've actually taken off about 30 pounds, and I feel way better, exercising way harder. But I had to get really strict with my diet, really strict. It didn't matter much when I was younger, but sure does now. What's that?
If I could ask a question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Yep. Yes.
I just wanted to comment on a kind of a quadrilateral relationship. My 31-year-old son, who's a PhD wildlife biologist, whose specialty is apex predators, and the exercise and the things that he can do in the mountains, that it's funny, it's like each person's getting older. I'm 64. I'll be 65 in June. And so the exercises that my 31-year-old son does, and then my wife, who is 10 years younger than I am, and a buddy of mine who's a 55-year-old orthopedic shoulder specialist. So trying to distill those different, okay, you've got to look at your diet, because what we metabolize, there's a saying, eat your breakfast like a king, your lunch like a prince, and your dinner like a pauper, because you need to fuel earlier in the day. And so I just wanted to ask a question based upon my orthopedic friend's advice, my son's current regimen. And so my regimen, I've got 2 hunts that were postponed by COVID up in the Yukon that I'm really looking forward to, and it'll be my 6th and 7th time to the Yukon. So currently my exercise pattern is I mix up elliptical, 5 minutes forward with hands, 5 minutes backward with hands, 5 minutes forward, no hands, 5 minutes backwards with hands. On some days it's no backpack, on other days it's with a backpack, and that helps core and it helps my legs. Then I'll switch another day to the rowing machine, and then another day to the stationary cycle, and another day to the free weights. So for someone who's getting more birthday candles on their birthday cake, my question to you is, what would be a good time to put into those particular exercises, and your thoughts on what recovery day or days is needed. And I'll end it with, we know this is not a sprint. It's pretty much a marathon to get from the braids of the river bottom to above tree line to the mountain. So just some comments on your thoughts on the time put in and then the recovery days. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Okay. Again, as we're aging here, it does take a lot longer to recover some days, and especially it all depends on how intense you go the day before, the day of. I always make sure I work out every single day, but if I crush one, let's say on a Monday, I'll come in and I'll just do some, corrective fitness, some stretches, or maybe just hit some upper body and work on my mobility. So I like to make sure that I'm in the gym every day to keep that pattern going. I don't want to skip any days, but recovery is definitely very, very important. And best way to put it is I just listen to my body. If my legs are really, really hurting, I'll come in and I'll, hit 20 minutes on the bike, kind of loosen them up a little bit, and then work on maybe some lateral movements, something that doesn't bother me for that day, and then work on some upper body. But I do know, like I said earlier, I know the older I've gotten, I definitely like to work out actually longer. For me, it seems to help, and I've got a lot of clients that are in their 60s and even in their 70s, and they still get after it. So, and I got one guy that's 76. He only lifts with me twice a week, but we get after it pretty hard. Then he recovers the rest of the week. Every day, yeah, because I don't want to get in that mode where if I start taking one day off, then I might start taking 2 days off, and I don't want to get in that pattern. So, there's always something you can do. Yeah.
Like you said, you take it a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever off.
You do, yeah. Yeah, I work out 5 days a week, every week. Wouldn't know any other way. Yeah. Yeah. And coming on that nutrition earlier too is play around with it. That's what I found really helped me out a lot. I used to research it and try to get ideas from nutritionists and other things, but they didn't really know how hard I was working out either. So maybe, certain diets didn't work for me, but, and I'm not ever on a diet per se, but I really played around with how many calories I was taking in a day and make sure it's really clean calories. Yeah.
Other questions?
So someone who really loves the big three, bench, squat, deadlift, love to lift heavy. I've done some of these backcountry training programs in the past, and a lot of them seem to be kind of void of the heavy powerlifting style movements. I was curious what you guys think of as the best way to incorporate those so I can still do the things I enjoy while also getting the best from these backcountry programs. Can you effectively add them into those training programs? I know a lot of them are lifting your pack overhead, doing a lot of lunges with your pack, which is great, and I like doing that, but I find myself in the gym always looking over at the squat rack, wishing I could be under it. So, yeah, just curious what you guys' thoughts on that would be.
Yeah, you bet. I can start and Jimmy can add to it. To repeat the question is, can you still do the big three in a backcountry program, the barbell movements? And we're huge believers in it. So our preseason and our postseason programs, all our gym programs, we're big on the squat and we're big on the deadlift. Not so much barbell bench, but we just don't think there's really a better way to get strong legs. We do a lot of lunges, but we don't shy away from that stuff at all. I think the one thing that we've noticed is what we always look for is someone's optimal weight to be in the mountains. So someone can go into the mountains at 180 lean, or they can go in at 220 really strong and bulky, and they're going to feel really slow at 220. So we're always trying to manage the athlete's optimal weight for the backcountry. And so even though we are deadlifting and squatting, we're doing enough high intensity cardio on the other days that they're not getting super big. And then just our volume too. We're not gonna do many deadlift programs or squat programs where we'd be down in the 1, 2, 3 rep range. So we're still squatting and deadlifting. We're just going high volume.
Yeah, to point on what Dustin said, I mean, we deadlift every week, and depending on what part of the season it is, sometimes it'll be a little bit higher volume on the squats and deads. And then even right now, with our crew, we're deadlifting pretty heavy, and then it's just kind of a seasonal thing. And then we use a lot of other movements and lifts that will help them out, like hip thrusters and lunges and things like that. Yeah, so it's just seasonal, but yeah, we're a big believer in the heavy stuff as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was a great question, and I'll just add on to that. I started with these guys, their program 4 years ago. I just started my 4th postseason strength program now, and before that, I was a cardio guy. I was a runner. I've been a hunter all my life. I was on a stone sheep hunt about 5 years ago. On day 5, just laying on the top of the mountain, trying to find a place to put my legs up. I was done. And I got onto this program. I'd never done a deadlift in my life, or a squat. But like they're saying, it's an important part of their program. And honestly, it changed my life. I mean, it turned everything around. Their exercises are laid in there where I think at one point we're doing deadlifts probably 3 days a week. And, I'm going to be 60 this year. So to your question, the weight it's not what it's about. It's, the form and the fact that my legs and my back and everything's stronger. It makes a huge difference. Yeah.
Thank you. So I'm 51, and I did your 30-30 no gear program for the first time last year.
Cool.
And really noticed a lot of difference in terms of less lower back pain, and but I did struggle with a lot of the things you've talked about today in terms of, number one, motivation, because I've always been motivated for that target. What am I doing this fall? That's absolutely how I've been motivated in the past. And so and I do have a 10-year-old son, so some of the stuff you're talking about today has really hit home, and I appreciate that.
You bet.
One of the things I've struggled with, you talked about recovery a little bit, but I struggled some with the fight, going from kind of a 3-day-a-week workout. Maybe I'd be hiking or doing something else active on those other days, but getting into that 5-day-a-week cycle of committing to working out those 5 days, I struggled with it time-wise, just building it into my work schedule, and then somewhat recovery. I didn't feel like I was recovered enough to give it my 100%. Do you have any suggestions on how to deal with, I guess, both the recovery part of it and then the motivation part of it to commit to the 5 days a week versus a lot of people do 3 days a week in the gym or 2 days a week or something like that?
Yeah, thank you. I'll repeat the question. So the question is about recovery on a 5-day-a-week program. And this comes up a lot. It's incredibly common. So almost every Mountain Tough program is 5 days a week, weekends off. And then so many of our athletes are doing something pretty hardcore on the weekends. They're not getting a ton of recovery because someone will be hunting, skiing, hiking on the weekends. What we do believe is, kind of like Jimmy mentioned, one thing is moving every single day is a game changer, because otherwise you'll get complacent pretty fast. So that was one reason we didn't want a lot of recovery days in there. The other reason was that all our athletes that are 20 to 30, that's a non-issue. So they're training 5 days a week, no problem, hitting the mountains all weekend and then back in on Monday. It's kind of a complete non-issue. With the programming, they're getting recovery on one muscle group as they work the next one. But we do see with almost all of our athletes over 40 that they need more recovery time. And so we have a lot of them on the postseason, preseason, 30-30 and 45-70, taking a midweek recovery day. So it messes the schedule up a little bit, but they will recover on like a Wednesday. And that way, that seems to help a ton, because they just don't recover as fast as they used to. But we still have them do something. So like light cardio, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's okay to take if you're sore, joints are sore, and you're really sore midweek.
Yeah, take some recovery, but if you have the availability to even get out and just do like a hike or hop on a bike and just get things moving and loosened up a little bit, that goes a long ways. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you bring up, the gentleman in the back brought up a good point. I've been surrounded by guys my whole life in this type of an atmosphere, and everybody in this room, I can tell you right now, is a performance-based individual. We all have goals that we want to achieve, and we come from different backgrounds, and different types of bodies. And you've got a gentleman back here who loves to do his squats and everything else, and you have a runner over here who likes to run. And that's a great foundation, but we've also got to get into a sport-specific mindset in that this is our sport.
Yeah.
And we have to apply what these guys have put together to take a large, fast muscle twitch individual and another guy who's a slow muscle twitch, but a marathon runner, and use this type of training and their sport-specific type training to achieve our goals in the mountains. And again, I keep on coming back to this. It's their generation has put this stuff together, whether you're climbing in the high-altitude mountains or doing this in the backcountry. We've all come from different backgrounds, and those are going to be our boilerplate, our base upon which we're going to build. So it's an actual asset to us. We just have to learn how to do what they're bringing to the table.
Absolutely. Jimmy, go over here.
All right, so I got one. I'm sure I'm not the only one in the room that can relate to this. A couple of years of making cortisone injections, kind of part of my preseason routine. Finally got my hip replaced. So what kind of programs do you have for major injury rehabilitation?
So the question is injuries and what to do in workarounds. Jimmy has a lot on here, and I can add some stuff on the end.
Yeah, so a lot of the programming that we do, if you have an injury, we encourage everybody to contact us, and we'll try to, change the movements for you that best suit you. And that's about the only thing we can do there is talk with you and see what you're capable of doing and work around those injuries. With a hip replacement, you got to definitely work on the glutes, of course, and get all that strong in the medial glute and range of motion and things like that. And there's going to be certain things you're going to want to stay away from as well. So, and the best thing we can do is just talk with you one-on-one and figure out the best solution for you.
Yeah, I think I would just add, we drive the PTs crazy in Bozeman because we kind of don't believe in taking as much time off as they say. So kind of the biggest mistake we see is someone taking a lot of time off to recover and not just getting back after it. So we encourage our athletes to get back after it right away, and we just modify around it. Because what we've seen so much is like an injury is going to create an imbalance, and even the surgery, and then you'll have a year or 2 years of that body part moving in the wrong track, and it could take another 8 months to correct that. So we push people hard really fast. Online that's tough, but in the gym we would just modify everything to make it work.
This is directed to you and anyone else. just real quickly, without going into detail, my specialty is back issues. And so I was a huge tennis player, high school tennis captain, NCAA college tennis player back in the day. And long story short, eventually had to have a left total knee replacement 11 years ago because my orthopedic surgeon said you exercise too much. Not because you're obese and not because you're rheumatoid, you exercise too much and you've done too much when you were younger. So 11 years ago, literally the afternoon of my left total knee replacement, I was up walking up and down the hall. So if you talk to your specialist, they're going to have you up and moving. No more sitting in the bed 2 or 3 days after your shoulder, your knee, your hip replacement. Get up, get moving, do the range of motion, and there are very, very specific exercises that you can do that I do. I mean, I've had a total knee replacement, and I can't walk quite as fast as my 22-year-old guy, but you know I can keep up with him. So the answer is, again, I love what you guys say about do something. Just stay moving.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've heard you talk about your lab and the things you go into, and I've heard you talk about people 40, 50, and 60. When hunting season starts this next year, I'll be 79. So what do you have for someone like me? Because my plan is when the end comes, they're going to carry me off the mountain, not out of a rest home.
I like it. Jimmy can help. He's training a 76-year-old 2 days a week right now.
Yeah, so my oldest client is 76, and he is still an avid snowboarder. He's not much of a hunter, but he loves hiking, and he snowboards, and he even has a collapsible snowboard that folds up, and he sticks in a pack, and he still hikes up the ridge at 76 and snowboards down. And we call him Staying Dangerous there at the gym. His name is Rick, and he's quite the character. And he challenges me as a trainer, because I have to kick his butt every week, and if I don't, he gets upset with me. And so he's very dedicated, and so I've learned a lot over the last 10 years with him that what we can do. And just for an example, just a few weeks ago he was in there. We did 20 walking lunges with a 30-second wall sit, and then did pull-ups. Then we did 18 wall sit, 16 wall sit, all the way down to 76. And that really, again on that volume thing, is we just hit him with a lot of volume and staying light. If he cannot do a certain weight and go down full range of motion, then we lighten it. Every movement that he does is we make sure that it's full range of motion. Keep those knees and hips and back and shoulders all loosened up, and that works out very well for him. So any other? All of you. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Just keep going. Yeah.
Yeah, I just got a question here about the membership thing here. Is all this exercises and which got diet, is all that on if you get a membership to this?
It is, yeah. So that's a discount card for Mountain Tough Plus. So it's a app on your phone, all the Roku smart TVs. So it'll be on Fire Stick, Samsung, Roku, Apple TV, and then it's a native Android and iPhone app. And all our programs are in there. So all our gym-based programs, our no gym, no gear programs, and then all of our challenge workouts, heavy pack workouts, and then our nutrition plans all inside of there.
Oh, okay, that's great. Thank you.
I was wondering if you guys have a rule of thumb on hydration, supplements, things like that. I know this day and age there seems to be a million pre-workout companies building supplements, things like that. Do you have a general rule of thumb on how much water consumption and how much electrolyte style drinks you should be adding to your diet?
Yeah, I can start and Jimmy can add. The question is around supplements and hydration. We usually separate that question out in the gym during the week training and then in the mountains, just because we handle that a little bit differently. But from the gym 5-day-a-week perspective, we don't push or really preach any supplements. So we try the best we can. We try to keep all the people in the gym like off the pre-workouts and protein powders, and then we don't usually encourage that. But what we do encourage is people to take protein if they're not hitting their numbers, because that's a really hard number to hit. But we want them to get all of that through real food. So we're big believers in real whole food, and so we lean kind of on the opposite end of that spectrum. And then tons of water, so it's all about hydration. Jimmy's huge on hydration, drinking water all the time. And then when we do go into the hills, we will take some electrolytes, just because it's hard to get enough of those. But we keep it pretty simple.
Yeah, I'll take some, electrolyte tablets with me. Not specific any brands or anything, just a good quality one. And then staying hydrated is definitely key. I don't know if I really try to measure out my water per day, but I just make sure if I'm thirsty that I'm drinking right away, and hopefully I'm getting enough, and you'll kind of know if you are or not. If you're getting lots of cramps or anything like that, then you got to change something and start playing around with more electrolytes or potassium and magnesium and staying on top of that.
Any final questions?
I'm around 80 myself, and I'm finding the pain becomes a bigger issue. I'm not looking for knee surgeries or hip surgeries or any of that sort of thing, but you got any general advice on when to back off when the pain's starting to hit you?
Do you say you're 80?
Yeah.
Awesome. Jimmy, what do you think?
Like, are you noticing this pain in your workouts while you're hunting?
In the workouts and the hikes, steeper hikes.
How good are your warm-ups? Are you?
Not doing much of stretching or anything.
Yeah, I can relate to that a little bit on where the older I've gotten, I know that I definitely have to warm up more. Get that synovial fluid going, get your joints loosened up. And so, maybe back in the day when I was younger, I could do a 5-minute warm-up, I'm good to go. Where you start noticing maybe it takes a 10-minute warm-up, or maybe it takes a 15-minute warm-up, and some mobility exercises before you start lifting. Make sure you can go and perform the exercises without the weight, before you start adding weight. So if you're lunging, make sure that you can get your knee all the way down to the ground before you start incorporating holding onto dumbbells. So you can do some quad stretches and some hip stretches and hit the bike and get all loosened up before you start the program, and then it should help. So you bet.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone. Appreciate your time. Super humbled and grateful to be here, and we'll be out in the booth and we're around if you guys have any more questions.
Thanks, guys.